It's never been told in its extremity before.
In its extremity.
And this is, are we on the air?
We are on the air.
Good morning, Bob. Well, this is a story that I've chosen to call Melancholy Baby. The song Melancholy Baby does feature in the story.
I should hope so.
It goes back to, I think, the year 1970. And I was working at Metropolitan State Hospital in beautiful Waltham, Massachusetts, on a geriatric ward most of the time. But I'd also, when other wards were short, I'd get floated over to other wards as a attendant or a mental health worker. I often used to go to the medical and surgical ward. And that's where I first met Cecil. And when I first met him, he could not say, he didn't seem to have a single vocabulary word. All it sounded was that he was making gibberish to me, as far as I could tell. And he was in a geriatric chair, and he was dressed in a Johnny, and they didn't really seem to know what had happened to him. But anyway, I told the nurse then that I was working with then that this guy was pretty zany. And she was an Irish nurse, and she didn't know what zany meant. And I'm not sure it fits the case perfectly, but it meant that his brain seemed to be pretty far gone. And then a month or so later, he showed up on my regular ward, which was a men's geriatric ward. And he was still in a geriatric chair. He was not walking at all. As far as we know, he could not walk. Now, I'm going to go back a bit and say that concurrently to these events, I was working with a guy named Rooster, we'll call him, on this male geriatric ward. And he, because he used to get bullied by one of the staff. And the staff member's name was Vinny. And Vinny used to hide behind a corner and yell out like this: "Rooster! Rooster! Rooster! Do you hear me? Rooster!" And Rooster would respond and say, "Who's calling me? Who is that? Who's calling? What do you want? What do you want?" And then Vinny would come storming out from behind the corner, smacking his feet down and saying, "Who's making all the noise out here? Who's screaming around out here? Was that you again, Rooster?" Of course it was. So I thought that this was an unhealthy environment for Rooster. So I spoke to Vinny about it. Vinny was probably a good 30 years older than I was. And he said, "Oh, no, it stimulates him. It's good for him." And, well, I said, "But I think you're getting him angry and flustered, and, you know, you're getting him confused about what reality is." But Vinny insisted it was good for Rooster. And this little dance that they would do continued for weeks and months. And I talked to the charge nurse, and then I talked to the supervisory nurse, who said, you know, Frank, it's hard to fill these positions. Vinny shows up for work every day the way he's supposed to. He helps keep the place clean. No dreadful cases of abuse. We just have to, sometimes we just have to make the best we can of a situation. So, undaunted, of course. And I say that with all intent of building myself up in the story to impress people. So I decided that I would do my own intervention, and I'd be doing baths in the morning, bathing these patients, many of whom were incontinent. And so I focused on bathing the ones that were in the geriatric chairs that weren't walking around much, or ones that were obviously wet or foul smelling. And Rooster would help me bathe the other patients. And it got so, we got to know each other a bit better, and I asked him what songs he liked to sing. And he said, oh, I like Melancholy Baby. I said, well, that's a good one. Why don't we sing it together? So we were working on our Melancholy Baby duet and bathing these guys. And one of these guys was the earlier fellow, Cecil. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Cecil joins in with a chorus of Melancholy Baby. And I dropped my teeth in disbelief and shock. And after that, though, I began talking more and more to Cecil and singing more songs. And I said to him one time, do you think you could walk? Do you think you know, you're in this chair all the time, but do you think you'd like to try walking? And he said, oh, sure. So we tried doing some walking, and he was slow at first and weak, but he had no significant problem with his walking. And I got him, most of the patients there had elastic pants. You know, one size fits several different waistlines. And then there'd be a large and a super large size. And they also had elastic slippers that had elastic around the ankles, which did create some problems with edema. But that's a story for a different night. But I got some leather slippers for Cecil.
Uh-oh. I see a battery signal. This drains the battery big time. Anyway, go on. The leather slippers for Cecil.
So I got him some leather slippers. I got him pants that fit, that were, you know, his right waistline, and that had belt loops and a leather belt, nice shirts. And he was doing, you know, better and better. And one day he was upset about something. I don't know what it was, but I said to him, Cecil, you seem angry today. Are you angry with me? And he said, how could I be angry at you? You've been like a father to me. And he ended up going home. His wife ended up taking him home.
Which was very unusual.
It was
highly unusual from
the only case during that year I was working on that ward. It was the only case of anybody going home.
Wow.
It's a beautiful story, Frank.
It is a beautiful story.
And highly atypical of you.